recording.
Okie dokie, hello all. Grandpa is gonna talk about Ceres Cemetery some today. And so I'll just let him take over with that.
Well, when I was a little bitty kid, 5, 6 years old, Dad would say, "Well, son, it's time for cemetery cleanup. Come on, go with me." And he'd carry a couple of tools and some matches, and we'd go over there and set it on fire. And if it missed a little spot, he'd take care of that. See that it didn't go down the bar ditches either way. That was the total cleanup of the cemetery every spring till Aunt Mary getting real old, and she went to buying wheels for a lawnmower. She didn't have much money, but she'd save up. She's gonna buy enough parts that Hansel could put together a lawnmower. So Mom, my mother, and Elsie and Hedwig walked out the cemetery one spring, got all the names, and went to contacting every family they could, had people buried there. And that was in the, I'd say mid-50s. So they formed an organization. And William and Hedwig was elected or appointed secretary-treasurer. I was appointed or elected president. And I stayed president until about 2 years ago. I had that meeting at Memorial Day. And then last year it was Kimberly Ratliff, Mark Ratliff's wife, and Mark is Max Ratliff's son, who is the son of Mose Ratliff. So we pretty well kept it in the family. But got on up and got organized, done a lot of work, leveling places, and it was in a terrible mess. We did dig graves. They settle in and big holes and dips. So we leveled a lot of places and really improved it. Redone some of the fence. That's been the last work. We've got the front lowered, just about a foot high pipe across there. We've built a rock front. Rod here was in on that. People owned an old rock house 2 miles south of Ceres. And they give us a house so we can have the stone.
And I burned the house down.
Rod, old Eben Hedwig, and Rod and I went down, set the house on fire, and burned all the wood out of it. Then we went back, and O.V. brought a tractor. We pulled the walls down. We used chain and a good pry bar across the window and just pull and down they'd come. Then he had a front end loader, and we put them on a truck and take them over there. And it was quite a deal. We run a good footing under it. It's never settled one bit. We dug down a little bit and then dug post holes, spaced them just so, cleaned them out to 6-inch auger. Went down about 4 feet, if I remember right, and run all of them full of concrete, and then run a slab, about ground level. And then laid her rock on that. Sam Carpenter was kind of the engineer on laying the rocks. And I had talked to stonemasons trying to hire somebody, but I couldn't find any close. They was all around Pawnee that I talked to. But they told me the life of any rock wall is the slab on top to hold it all together. So we built forms and fixed and run us a 4-inch slab on top of everything. It's in 3 steps. It really looks nice. Then a fellow I got acquainted with here in the city had a spray stuff. It was where they spray the lighter inside of a pickup bed. It's real tough, rubbery stuff. So he came up and sprayed that and fixed. So and it still looks good. That stuff is very durable. And then all the graves I helped dig, one of them, it was a Price girl. She had died way off someplace. And they shipped her back in a sealed casket. Dad, Uncle Mose Ratliff and Dad was busy at something else, and Irvin Sullins, the 3 of us, dug the grave. And when we was down to about the last tier, it had to be, Mose and I had dug the dirt with spades, and Irvin threw a shovel in and jumped in, and that shovel flipped back and hit him just below his belly button a little ways and pinned him at the end of the grave, the west end. Man, it's clear in my mind yet today. I was in high school then, folks had bought me a regular dress suit for graduation, my first one. So Dad said, well, son, I've got the point pallbearers. It's time for you to start. So I was one of the pallbearers. I don't remember who the others were. But in 2 or 3 days, Mose and I had to pull Irvin. He was hung. He couldn't move. And shovel handle had him pinned to the end of the grave, and I'm sure was hurting pretty bad. We each one got under an armpit, pulled him up out, and he laid there quite a while. He finally said, well, I think I can make it home. He had a car or something there. And I seen him in 2 or 3 days. We was away out. And he just undone his pants, and oh, he was black. He wasn't black and blue. He was solid black. All of his belly, oh, it looked awful. But he never affected him any other way. And then that was my first time, and we got the casket over the rough box. And they dismissed the crowd, and a fellow named Bert Long was there. He'd been in World War II, the Marines. He had worked for Martin Dean, my uncle, for several years before the war. He come up, put his arm around me and kind of turned me from other people. He said, boy, you ought to zip up your pants. That's something else you'll never forget. I've been to pallbearer with unzipped pants. Oh, I've dug so many graves. Then when his family lived there closer to Red Rock, the Blues. And I dated Molly Blue a few times, and Jack was Maureen's age. And their grandma, I'd never heard of her, passed away, old Harry Blue's mama. And they was burying her at Ceres. So Jack Blue and Babe Dixon and I dug the grave. Dad had to be gone someplace. He told me, now son, don't let your sides pull in. Well, we thought we'd done a good job. When Dad came home, he didn't stop at the house, he went to the cemetery. Sure enough, we narrowed it down. Boy, the next morning he had me up early. Son, you've got to go and straighten that grave and widen it out. You let it there, it won't work. So he put me in there with his old spade and jobbing them edges down and give me a yardstick, and this has got to fit everywhere across that grave. Not one side, but both sides has got to be. Well, then you had to shovel the dirt out over the pile. I never went to the grave, the burial, because I was too tired. That's work of jobbing that sides. But I had it, it worked. I got the rough box in and the casket in. Oh, I've hopped down on the rough box and nailed it down on the lid on it. And, I've done about everything you can do in the cemetery. Oh, I was out of high school a year or two. Was at the store at Ceres for something. I'd helped dig the grave. It was Joe and Andy Horn's mother or sister, I can't remember. And it was real wet. And here come the old boy that set the vault to the store. I gotta have somebody to help me set the vault. I can't back over the grave, it's too wet. So I went over there and we set it down on, he had some rollers and some pry bars and planks. And we got that vault on the planks and push it, then have to move this roller up ahead, reset planks. And the funeral came and they sat in their cars and waited for us to finish getting the vault set in the right way. But it worked. Oh, we was working hard trying to get it. Boy, them old concrete vaults are heavy.
I imagine.
Oh,
The most thing I ever did there was we had that cleanup project where we're cleaning up all the old curbs around the
yeah.
lots. And some of them old timers didn't want that concrete to ever be removed because they used everything in there and dug them deep. We never got some of them upended out of the ground.
Well, one we never could.
Yeah, it's still there.
Yeah.
But most of them we got up and filled with field sand and smooth where it made it a lot easier to mow.
Oh, yeah. What the idea of putting a curb around your lot was, I don't know.
But some of them old timers, they used cables, they used whatever scrap they had laying around to put in that concrete. You couldn't hardly break it up. It was just,
Yeah, that one with the cable. We had to go, somebody went and got a cutting torch so we could cut the cable. Oh, they went around 3 or 4 times.
I mean, had a tractor with a front end loader, and you just go to ripping up, and they'd beld the bottom of the form, so you'd just tear up so much ground, and just it was a mess.
Yes, it was.
And then take wheelbarrows full of sand and go to filling it in.
Leveling it up. Yeah, when they used the old rough box, it would rot out, the cave in. Then I guess the casket would collapse eventually and have to fill it in again. And it was, oh, we had to time it, but we helped it an awful lot.
But now with the concrete vaults, you don't have near the problem.
Yeah, one time, it was Faye Garden's funeral. I had that 62 Ford truck with a lift on it. And we dug the grave with a backhoe and put the dirt on my truck. We got doing that a lot. And I took the truck, I think, to Dad's and just parked it there in the yard. The funeral, I had it there back, ready, lined up to back up, but it had turned bitter cold that night. And the dirt froze to the truck. And it was, you know, holes they dug in big backhoe loads. And there was air holes all in there to let that cold air in. And it was a mess. We'd use pry bars and break loose and get just a big old frozen chunk fall in. But that, we knew that vault would break. But it never, it helped. And that spring, you can see the vault in places. There's so many big old clumps. Oh, we had the time there. They finally got it all in, settled down. They got it leveled up. Oh, it was a mess. Oh, I've had so many experiences there. And Dad had a lot more.
Yeah, but it sounds like all your grave digging experiences, he'd find something to get busy and let you young men dig the
Well,
hole.
he tried. He had dug so many.
Because you always said he had something else to do while you were digging the hole, so he didn't want to dig anymore.
That's why he raised me, I guess. But we had some old fella, he drifted off out in New Mexico, Arizona, someplace. I'd never heard of him. And they got a hold of the folks, I guess, I don't know who. They shipped his body back for burial at Ceres cemetery. Hans, could you see that we have pallbearers and get the grave dug? And so Dad found 6 men. And we had just bought them new pews, put in the church, and we hadn't had them a week or two. And, you know, the pallbearers come in and the undertaker nodded. We all sat down and that pew made a big crack. I thought, sure, it's going to collapse. But the only one that ever done that, but have 6 men sat down at once.
It settled out a little bit.
Oh, man. And that old boy had been married 3 times, and all 3 wives was there. All 3 are crying and carrying on. He must have been quite a man. That's all I can think. I can't even think of his name now.
He's somewhere there in Ceres.
He's somewhere in Ceres. But.
Yeah, but when you're talking about the church, that'd be the Ceres Baptist Church right there in Ceres, which
Oh,
is a
yes.
little bitty church. I mean, it was a small
30 by 40, that's what it was.
30 by 40. I knew it was small. And it had that and a path. That was your bathroom. You went to the outhouse. There's no
Yeah.
running water there.
No water at all
No
in
water.
Ceres Hill. Nobody had water. You dug cisterns and caught rainwater. But that's another whole new story.
But when did you guys build like the 2 classrooms in front of the main building at?
Oh my, that was after World War II. Uncle Charlie Greer got oil. He was a founding deacon in the church. And so he give heavy, he get 4 oil wells. And I don't know about the barrels, but he had 6 kids. So he gave each kid 10 acres, a barrel. He had 20 acres. And John Greer was drawing $1,000 a month off of his 10 acres.
Well, back then that was good money.
Oh, that was big money. Nobody made that kind of money working. And so he give, well, say 2,000, he'd give 200. Well, man, we soon built up a surplus, and that's how we put that on.
'Cause I remember those 2 classrooms, and then you'd go into the main church, and the floor was slightly angled in that church.
Oh, it had quite a slope and change slope. I got the degrees of slope when we went to get them pews. Jack McGinnis and I drove to McAllister. Drove my car. I had nearly a new car. I'm on a new 58 Ford. Went to Jack's and he was up and about ready when I got there. And it's a long ways to McAllister from Ceres. We got there pretty early. They took us back, they showed us what they could build, took us back and showed us all the tools in the wood shop where they build them. And them old convicts, some of them, and nearly look holes through you. Oh, them was hard looking fellers. I was so glad we got out of there. But we ate lunch with with the employees, the paid employees, some guards.
So those pews that I remember seeing were made in the McAllister prison.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that, so that's...
Well, and when they disband the Baptist church, they give them to the Christian church because they'd fit in there. All the Christian church had to do was move them. They had some, well, all
The Christian church here in Ceres? Or-
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where those pews are now.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So,
Yeah.
of course, I haven't been in that Christian church since I was a boy.
Well, I went back for several funerals, but their pews was, I don't know whether they had made them, but they didn't sit very good at the Baptist church. They said, well, we've got to go over there for funerals every once in a while. Let's give them to there so we can sit easier. That's why they give them to them. I tell you, experiences.
Because I can remember that church and taking Grandpa. Well, I was young. And you would take him to a church service there in Ceres at the
Once
church.
a month. No, every 3 weeks.
And that's when I would go to church there, and I would sit back with Grandpa back in the back of the church. I can't remember who was the preacher. Was it Brother Odell or?
I don't remember.
I don't remember who the preacher was back then, but I just remember going and sitting in the back. I thought it was so cool. I could sit in the back of the church with Grandpa.
Well, we'd leave our house. It was 22 miles to Perry. Get Dad, bring him out to Ceres to church. Of course, I'd have to get him out of bed, put him in the wheelchair, get him out of the wheelchair and put him in the car, load the wheelchair, then get to the church, and them old steps was tall. They didn't intend for when you got old and crippled up to go to Ceres Baptist Church. I don't know why they built them that way. But
Probably
anyway,
used less lumber when they built the steps.
I'd catch somebody there, generally Bob Bratland, and help me one in the back of lift and pulling up, and the other down there lifting and pushing. We'd get him into church, and then I'd get him to the house. Betty'd have lunch ready, and we'd get there. I had 2 bridge timbers there at the front door on the top step into our front door, and I'd pull him backwards up in planks and get up there and then hump him in and then hump him into the house. Oh, son, now I've got to lay down. I'm tired. So I'd lift him over into the divan, onto the divan, and lay there a while. We'd all eat. Then I'd have to put him in his wheelchair. Take him in, of course, some of you kids would roll him into the kitchen, Betty, and have him a plate of food there. He'd eat, and well, Dad, you ready to go to? No, I'm not. I gotta go look around. You gotta put me in that car and take me out. I gotta look around, see what the country looks like. Let's go down by Ike's and the old Jack Martin place. Oh, take him down there. Ah, Dad, it's time to get you back. No, son, I'm too tired. Take me to your house, and I gotta lay down a while. So take him back, pull him back up into the house, put him on the divan. He'd lay there, and finally I said, Dad, I got to take you back. Oh, he growled, but
He would fuss. He didn't want to go back to that nursing home.
no, he didn't.
And he liked, I think, being around us grandkids too, because we
Well,
would.
and Betty had fed him and babied him. He liked it. So then I'd have to load him back in his wheelchair and in the car, back and get him back in the wheelchair and take him in. It was the hardest day I put in all week when I was farming, busy in the summertime. I'd come home totally exhausted.
Well, it's probably about half mental tired to
Well,
boot.
yes.
Plus all the physical work of lifting and carting him around.
The last time I brought Dad out from Perry to Ceres, he was all slumped down in the car. Said, son, that's an eagle. I see an eagle. I I couldn't even see it. I was driving. I acted like I did. I said, "Oh, Dad, that's a hawk." "Don't you doubt me, son. I know an eagle when I see an eagle." Oh, he flared up.
Well, I remember you and getting him some of that tobacco one time and getting him sick. That was, and you did it on purpose. You were kind of mean.
Well, that's when they still at Ceres. And I know he'd talk about chewing Tinsley's rough cut, I believe it was.
That was
Oh,
a natural leaf or something.
Naturally, yeah. Oh, that's so good. Oh, I'd love to have some more Tinsley's natural leaf. So one day I was somewhere in the cafe paying up, and I looked down the showcase, and there was Tinsley's natural leaf. So I bought a plug of it, put it in the glove box of the pickup. A few days I was by, going somewhere. Dad come hobbling out to get in. I got him loaded. Now, I showed him. I said, "Dad, you've been wanting some Tinsley's natural leaf. Look here what I found." "Oh boy, son, cut me off a little corner. Not too much." Well, I cut off about 3 times more than he wanted. "Oh yeah, Dad, you like it." He got sick in a little bit before we even started going so. And just up chucked it. Who got to clean it up? Who had caused it? Oh, but I hadn't thought ahead that far. Oh,
Well, that'd be about time.
okay.
So hopefully that come out pretty good.
Hopefully.